The sun hung low over the wide Arizona sky, stretching long shadows across the dry ground. Dust drifted in the air, carried by a warm breeze that smelled of earth and sage. At the edge of a small frontier town, a group of people stood gathered around a wooden platform. Their faces carried uncertainty, worry, and exhaustion. Among them was a young Apache girl named Kohana. She stood straight, even though she was tired. Her dark eyes moved over the crowd, trying to understand the situation she had been forced into. Kohana did not know this town. She did not know these people. She did not know why she had been brought here, only that strangers had taken her from her land and brought her to a place full of noise, harsh voices, and unfriendly faces. But even in her fear, she held her head high. She refused to let the world see weakness in her. At the far side of the platform, a man in a dusty tan coat sat on a horse. His name was Caleb Mercer, a rancher from several miles outside town. Many people in the area knew him as quiet, steady, and honest. Some admired him, some didn't trust him. But everyone knew he lived by a clear sense of right and wrong. Caleb had come to town that morning with a simple plan. He needed new workers for his ranch, someone to help with the horses and take care of the land. He expected to find volunteers or travelers looking for honest work, but instead, he arrived to see something that made his stomach tighten. There on the platform were people who had clearly not chosen to be there. Men, women, and one very young girl standing with a calmness that seemed too strong for her age. The person running the event spoke loudly, introducing each person as though they were something to be traded. Caleb disliked the whole scene immediately. It felt wrong. Deeply wrong. He stayed on his horse, watching, thinking. He had no wish to be part of what was happening. Yet walking away also felt like doing nothing, while others suffered. He watched the faces of the people on the platform, and among them, Kohana stood out the most. She was alert, cautious, and proud. Her hands were tied with a thin rope, but even that did not hide her spirit. She held herself like someone who still believed she belonged to herself and no one else. Caleb admired that strength. It reminded him of his own younger sister, who had always faced the world with sharp eyes and brave thoughts. Something about Kohana's expression made him feel protective, though he did not know her name or story. As the event continued, some members of the crowd stepped forward, looking at the people on the platform with cold eyes. Some whispered to each other, pointing, judging, deciding. Caleb could tell that many of them had no intention of offering honest work or kindness. He noticed one man near the front, who watched Kohana too closely. His smile unpleasant and greedy. Caleb's jaw tightened. He guided his horse closer, stopping beside the platform. The man running the event looked pleased to see him. "Well, if it isn't Caleb Mercer," the man said with a loud grin. "Come to choose someone for that big ranch of yours? You've come to the right place." Crassed. Caleb did not smile. "Where did these people come from?" he asked calmly. "Oh, here and there," the man said, waving his hand. "Some were found traveling alone, some came from other towns. But don't you worry, they're strong and useful. Good hands for work. Fair price, too." Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. He had learned long ago to notice when someone avoided the truth. The man's answer told him everything. These people had not chosen to be here. Whatever story the organizer planned to tell, Caleb knew it wasn't honest. Kohana watched the exchange between Caleb and the organizer. She studied Caleb's face carefully. There was something different about him. He looked troubled instead of eager. His gaze was steady but not sharp or cruel. Still, she kept her distance, her emotions held tight inside. The organizer raised his voice again. "Next up, this young girl. Strong, quick, and smart. She'll be useful on any ranch or homestead." Caleb almost asked the man to stop describing her that way, but he held back. If he drew attention, someone else might step in first, someone with bad intentions. He could not allow that. He needed a plan, and he needed to think fast. If he refused to act, Kohana might end up with the man who had been staring at her earlier. Caleb had seen too much of the world to pretend everything would turn out fine. Sometimes, doing the right thing meant stepping into a situation you wished you could avoid. The organizer announced a starting price. The unpleasant man near the front lifted his hand to bid. Kohana's eyes moved toward him, and though she stayed strong, the smallest flicker of fear crossed her face. That was enough for Caleb. He lifted his voice and called out a bid that was higher than the first. The crowd turned toward him in surprise. The organizer, pleased to hear a larger offer, looked immediately hopeful. The other man frowned, annoyed. He raised his bid too, pushing the price higher. Caleb matched each offer calmly, refusing to look away. After several rounds, the other man finally gave up, muttering beneath his breath. Caleb's final offer stood. The organizer ended the bidding with a fast clap of his hands. Sold, to Mr. Caleb Mercer. The announcement echoed across the square. Kohana's eyes locked onto Caleb. She did not look grateful. She did not look relieved. Instead, she looked confused and alert. She did not understand why a stranger would step forward to claim her, and she did not trust any good reason behind it. Caleb rode his horse to the side of the platform as Kohana was guided down. One of the assistants reached for her arm, but Caleb held out his hand. "That's enough," he said firmly. "I'll take her from here." The assistant stepped back, surprised by Caleb's tone. Caleb dismounted from his horse, landing lightly on his feet. He moved slowly, careful not to appear threatening or forceful. Kohana stepped toward him but kept a respectful distance. "I'm not going to harm you," he said softly. "I'm not here to keep you. I just didn't want someone else taking you." Kohana did not answer. She looked him straight in the eyes, studying him with a calm strength. Caleb gently cut the rope, binding her wrists. She pulled her hands away, rubbing them slowly. She still did not trust him, and he knew trust would not come quickly. Around them, the crowd began to break apart. Some looked confused by Caleb's actions. Others shrugged and returned to their daily lives. But the man who had wanted to claim Kohana did not leave quietly. He stared at Caleb with cold, angry eyes, before turning toward his horse and riding away. Caleb noticed the look but chose not to respond. He focused only on Kohana. He motioned toward his horse. "You can ride or walk beside me." "Your choice," he said. Kohana hesitated. She did not like being guided anywhere, especially not by a stranger. But she also understood that staying in this town would bring her no safety. She glanced again at the man who had left with an unfriendly glare. That decided it. She stepped toward Caleb's horse. Caleb helped her onto the saddle without touching her more than necessary, keeping respectful space. Then he climbed up behind her, leaving a small gap to show he did not intend to control her movements. As they began to ride out of town, Kohana looked back only once. Her expression remained unreadable, but her eyes held both strength and uncertainty. Caleb did not speak for a long time. He let the journey unfold quietly, giving her room to breathe. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew that he had stepped into a difficult situation, and now he carried a responsibility, not ownership, but protection. And though Kohana did not yet trust him, she could sense that this cowboy was not like the others. Their story had begun. The trail leading away from town stretched into open land, covered in soft golden grass that bent gently in the afternoon breeze. The sky above was wide and endless, painted in shades of blue and pale orange as the sun began to lower. Caleb guided his horse at a slow, steady pace, not wanting to rush the moment or make Kohana feel pressured. Kohana sat straight on the saddle, her hands resting lightly near the horse's mane. She did not look back at town again. She looked ahead, studying the hills, the old trees, and the long, empty road. Even though they were leaving the crowd behind, she did not let her guard down. She kept her thoughts inside, watching every detail around her. Caleb stayed quiet for a long time. He wanted to speak, but he also respected her silence. He sensed she needed space, something she had not been given in some time, so he allowed the sound of the horse's hooves, the rustling wind, and the distant calls of birds to fill the air instead. After almost an hour of riding, Kohana finally spoke. Her voice was calm, but firm. "You paid for this body, cowboy," she said slowly, choosing each word with care. "But I obey no price. Caleb felt the words like a weight in the air. He was not angry, he understood. She had every right to say it. He steadied the horse and looked ahead before answering. "You're right," he said quietly. "I paid money. But I didn't buy you. I wasn't trying to own you. I just wanted to keep you safe until I could figure out a better way." Kohana turned her head slightly, studying him again. She didn't fully believe him yet. People often spoke kindly when they wanted something. She had learned this truth from the world itself. Trust was not something she gave freely. "Why did you stop that other man?" she asked. Her tone was not curious, it was measuring him, testing him. Caleb breathed out slowly. "Because I didn't like the way he looked at you," he said. "And because I've seen people taken advantage of before. I couldn't just sit there and let it happen again." Kohana looked away, staring at the horizon. She let the silence fall again. Caleb didn't push the conversation further. As they continued riding, the land began to change. They passed a long stretch of wildflowers. Then an old wooden fence that marked the start of ranch country. The sky grew softer, and a few clouds drifted lazily across it. Kohana was quiet, but she noticed everything: the way Caleb handled the horse gently, the way he kept a respectful distance behind her on the saddle, the way he avoided sudden movements. He was cautious, but not fearful. He treated her presence with respect, not control. Still, she did not relax fully. She folded her arms loosely, keeping her posture strong and alert. She had been taken from her land once. She would not be taken again. After a while, Caleb pointed toward a small hill. "We'll stop up there to rest," he said. "The horse needs water, and you might be tired." Kohana didn't answer, but she didn't resist either. They reached the hill, where a small spring bubbled from the rocks. Caleb helped the horse drink, then set down his travel bag. Kohana stepped off the saddle without asking for help. She moved with the agility of someone used to living on open land. Caleb glanced at her wrists, remembering the rope marks. "If you want, I have some salve for your hands," he offered. Kohana shook her head. "I do not need it." "All right," he said gently. "Just thought I'd offer." She walked to the edge of the spring, cupped her hands, and lifted cool water to her face. The water reflected the evening sky, and for a moment, she felt something close to calmness. But it was brief. Caleb stayed a short distance away, giving her space. He sat on a flat stone and took out a small piece of bread and dried fruit. "You should eat," he said. "I will eat later," she replied. "You can have some of this," he said, leaving the food on a clean cloth between them. No pressure. She did not move toward it, but she noticed it. She noticed everything. After a few minutes, she finally asked, "Where are you taking me?" Caleb sat up straighter. "To my ranch," he said. "It's a few hours away. You'll be safe there until you decide what you want to do." Kohana's eyes narrowed. "Why would you offer me choices?" "Because everyone deserves choices," he said simply. This response caught her off guard. Her expression softened, but only a little. She studied him again, trying to understand his intentions. "Do you expect me to work for you?" she asked. "No," he said immediately. "Not unless you want to. I won't force anything on you." She crossed her arms. "Then why help me?" Caleb looked thoughtfully at the spring water. "Because helping someone doesn't always need a reason," he said. "Sometimes it's just the right thing to do." His words were quiet but steady. Kohana watched him long enough to see he meant them. Still, she did not thank him. She was not ready to give him that piece of herself. When they continued their journey, the sky had begun to change again. The warm colors of sunset spread across the land, turning the hills into soft shades of pink and orange. A peaceful glow settled over everything. Caleb rode next to Kohana this time instead of behind her. He kept the horse slow so she wouldn't feel rushed. He noticed she looked less tense, though still guarded. At one point, Kohana asked, "Do you live alone?" "For now, yes," Caleb replied. "But I used to live with my father and sister. They passed a few years ago." Kohana nodded slowly. Loss was something she understood well. "Your land," she said. "Is it large?" Large enough that I can't take care of it alone, he said with a small smile. She didn't smile back, but her expression softened again. She was beginning to see the shape of his life, simple, quiet, honest. As they rode farther, the lights of town disappeared completely behind them. All that remained was the open land, the sound of crickets beginning to sing, and the steady rhythm of the horse's steps. Kohana shifted lightly in the saddle. "If I go with you," she said carefully, "I want to make something clear." Caleb looked at her. "Go ahead." "I do not belong to you," she said. "Not today, not tomorrow, not ever." Caleb nodded. "I know. And if I choose to leave," she added, "you will not stop me." "Of course," he replied. Kohana looked forward again. She had expected resistance, or a long explanation. Instead, his answer was simple. Too simple. It made something inside her loosen, though she tried not to show it. The sky darkened into deep blue as they finally approached a small ridge. Beyond it lay the outline of Caleb's ranch, quiet, peaceful, and surrounded by open grazing land. As they descended the ridge, a soft breeze rose, carrying the smell of grass and warm earth. Kohana felt the smallest spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, this cowboy was telling the truth. But trust was a long road, and she was only taking the first step. The early morning sun painted the sky with soft colors of pink and gold as Caleb and Kohana reached the long wooden gate of the ranch. The land stretched far in every direction, rolling hills, open fields, tall grasses, and a few scattered trees that waved gently in the morning wind. It was a peaceful place, quiet and steady, a place where the world seemed to breathe slowly. Kohana looked around with sharp eyes. She noticed everything: the fences, the water barrels, the rows of tools neatly arranged against the barn wall. She saw the gentle horses grazing near a wooden fence and the clear pond reflecting the pale sky. She also noticed that there were no other workers around. It was quiet, almost too quiet. "This is your home?" she asked softly. "For many years," Caleb replied. Kohana took a slow breath. The land was wide and open. It made her feel both small and free at the same time. She wasn't ready to trust the place yet, but she noticed that her shoulders relaxed just a little. Caleb led the horse to the barn, letting it rest. Kohana stepped down and kept a careful distance, watching the birds as they hopped across the fence rails. Everything seemed calm, but a quiet tension hung in the air. She felt it before she understood it. Something in the wind felt different. Caleb felt it too. He frowned, scanning the far edges of his land where the sunlight met the hills. Then he shook his head slightly, like he was brushing off a thought he didn't want to believe. "Come inside," he said gently. "You can rest for a bit. I'll show you the house." Kohana followed him at a slow pace. The house was small but warm, with wooden floors and sunlight spilling through the windows. A pot of herbs hung drying above the table, and a gentle scent filled the air. Everything inside looked cared for, clean, organized, touched by someone who believed in order and calmness. "You can stay in this room," Caleb said, opening a door. "It has everything you might need, and if it doesn't, you can tell me." Kohana stepped inside. The room had a small bed with a soft blanket, a wooden chair, and a window that looked onto the open field. She touched the blanket gently, almost surprised by its softness. "You don't have to stay inside," Caleb added. "You're free to walk anywhere on the ranch." Kohana nodded slowly. "You trust me to walk freely?" "Of course," he said with a small smile. "You're not my prisoner." She didn't smile back, but she appreciated the words more than she showed. After a few minutes, Caleb left her to rest, but she didn't sit or lie down. Instead, she walked quietly to the window. She watched Caleb outside as he checked the fence line, fed the horses, and carried water to the trough. He moved with calm purpose, never rushing, never allowing stress to show. But Kohana saw something else too, something just beneath his steady expression. He kept glancing toward the far edge of the ranch, toward the hills. He was watching for something. Or someone. She narrowed her eyes. Something had followed them. She had felt it on the road too, like the air behind them had been disturbed by an unwelcome presence. She didn't know who or what, but she knew Caleb was not imagining it. Later that afternoon, Caleb returned to the house carrying a basket of fresh vegetables from his small garden. Kohana was sitting on the porch, watching the sky shift from blue to soft orange. "You didn't rest?" he asked gently. "I rested with my eyes open," she said. "That is enough." Caleb set the basket down and leaned against the porch railing. "You're not here to work. You can relax." Kohana shook her head. "My spirit does not rest easily. Not yet." "I understand," he said. She studied him for a moment. "What troubles you?" Caleb looked out toward the hills again, almost as if he expected someone to appear at any moment. "I just have a feeling," he said finally. "A quiet one, but it's there." Kohana waited for him to continue. "You remember the man who watched you in town?" Caleb asked. Kohana nodded slowly. She had not forgotten the way that man's eyes had followed her. "He didn't look pleased when I outbid him," Caleb said. Kohana's expression hardened slightly. She did not want anyone from that place coming near her again. "But don't worry," Caleb added quickly, softening his voice. "No one is here now. We're safe." Caleb Sabe's talk. Kohana appreciated his comforting tone. But she did not depend on the words alone. Her mind raced with thoughts. She knew how people acted when they believed they had lost something they wanted. She knew how stubbornness could grow inside the hearts of certain men. "Have you seen anything unusual?" she asked. "No," Caleb said. "Nothing yet. Just a feeling." Kohana folded her arms. "Sometimes feelings come before footsteps." He looked at her with quiet respect. "You're observant." "I learn quickly," she said. The evening deepened. The grass rustled with the soft wind, and distant birds flew in wide circles above the ranch. Caleb set a lantern on the porch, its warm light glowing gently. He offered her food from the basket. She hesitated, then accepted a small portion. It was fresh and simple, and she ate slowly, her eyes still watching the land. After a while, Caleb spoke again. "If someone does come here, and I'm not saying they will, but if they do, I want you to know you can stay inside the house. I'll handle it." Kohana shook her head. "I do not hide. Not on any land. Not in any home." Caleb's eyebrows raised slightly. "You're brave. I am careful," she corrected. "Those are different things." Caleb nodded with a thoughtful smile. "Fair enough." As the night sky settled above them, filled with stars shining like tiny sparks, a gentle silence wrapped around the ranch. The peacefulness felt real. But underneath it, both Caleb and Kohana sensed something else. Something like a slow-moving cloud drifting toward them. Quiet but steady. Not danger. Not threat. Just attention. Someone was thinking about them. Someone was following a trail. Not with anger or harmful intent, but perhaps with stubborn curiosity, or a desire to claim something that was never theirs to begin with. Kohana lifted her chin and looked out into the darkness. "If someone comes," she said softly, "I will not run. I will stand where my feet choose to stand." Caleb watched her with admiration. "Then I'll stand beside you." She didn't answer, but her eyes softened a little, like a small part of her accepted his promise. The night deepened. The wind carried the smell of sage and cool air. Somewhere far away, a horse made a distant sound. It echoed across the hills like a whisper. Kohana listened carefully. Caleb did too. And even though nothing harmful was near, both felt the same truth. Their journey together was just beginning. The world around them was shifting. Slowly, quietly, like a page in a book turning itself. Something or someone from their past was moving toward their future. But for now, they sat together on the porch of the quiet ranch, sharing the same peaceful night under the same wide sky. The next morning arrived quietly, bringing a soft silver light across the ranch. Thin clouds floated lazily across the sky, and the air felt cool and fresh. Kohana stepped outside the house, letting the morning breeze touch her face. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, breathing deeply. The land around her was calm, but inside her heart, thoughts moved like quiet waves. She had slept lightly, waking many times during the night to listen for unusual sounds, but all she heard was the steady wind and the gentle rustle of grass. Nothing disturbed the peace of the ranch. Caleb was already awake when she came outside. He stood near the fence, repairing a loose wooden rail. His movements were steady and focused. When he noticed her, he lifted a hand in a greeting. "Morning," he said with a warm smile. Kohana nodded. "Morning." Caleb continued working, and Kohana watched him for a moment. The simple strength in his actions surprised her. He did not rush, nor did he show frustration. He worked as if the land was part of him, and caring for it was as natural as breathing. After a while, Caleb stepped back and dusted off his hands. He looked at Kohana thoughtfully. "You don't have to help," he said, "but if you want something to do, I can show you around." Kohana tilted her head slightly. "Show me the land? Only if you want to see it." She considered his offer. Part of her wanted to stay near the house, where she could observe everything around her. Another part of her wanted to understand this place better. So she gave a small nod. "I will see," she said. Caleb smiled softly. "All right, let's walk." They walked side by side across the open field. The grass brushed lightly against their legs, and the sun began to rise higher, spreading warm light across the ranch. Caleb pointed out different areas: the small garden, the shallow creek, the far grazing field, and the tall oak tree that stood like a peaceful guardian beside the barn. Kohana listened quietly, asking a few questions here and there. She wanted to know what plants grew in the soil, which paths were easier to cross, and which parts of the land were shaded at sunset. Caleb answered everything patiently, appreciating her interest. "You really see everything," he said with a small laugh. "It is important to understand the land," she replied. "The land speaks if you listen." He nodded. "You're right. My father used to say the same thing." They continued walking until they reached a gentle hill overlooking the ranch. From there, the view stretched far across the fields and into the soft curves of the distant hills. Kohana stood still, gazing out. The land was open, wide, and inviting. A peaceful feeling spread through her chest, though she tried not to show it too clearly. Caleb watched her for a moment. "You look calmer than yesterday." "I am thinking," she said simply. "What about?" Kohana didn't answer right away. She took her time, letting her thoughts settle like dust in still air. "I am deciding," she finally said, "about where my feet want to go." Caleb nodded thoughtfully. "If your feet take you away from here, I won't stop you." "I know," she said softly. He looked out at the land with her. "But I'd like it if you stayed. Only if you choose it." Kohana's eyes lowered slightly. It was strange to her to be given choices again. Strange, but also comforting. She wrapped her arms lightly around herself. "This place is quiet," she said. "It lets the mind breathe, and you're welcome to stay as long as you want," Caleb replied gently. "No rules, no demands." She glanced at him. "Why do you trust me so easily?" He smiled. "Because you haven't given me any reason not to." She looked away again, trying to hide how his words touched her. As they stood there, a warm wind swept across the hill, lifting the ends of Kohana's hair. She closed her eyes and felt the breeze, letting the peace of the moment wash over her. After a few minutes, Caleb spoke again. "There's something I've been meaning to ask." Kohana opened her eyes. "What is it?" "You said your spirit does not rest easily," he said. "Is it because you want to return to your people?" Kohana's face softened with both longing and sadness. "Yes," she whispered. "But I do not know where they are now. The world changes quickly. The paths are not the same." Caleb's expression filled with understanding. "If you want, I can help you search." She looked at him sharply, surprised. "Why would you help with something so big?" "Because it matters to you," he said. "And because no one should be alone when they don't want to be." Kohana did not speak. Her throat felt tight, and she needed a moment to swallow her emotions. She had met many people in her life, but very few had ever offered help without expecting something in return. Caleb added softly, "But you don't have to decide now. You can take your time." She nodded slowly. "I will think." They walked back to the ranch in comfortable silence. The wind carried the smell of warm earth and morning dew. The air felt lighter. Later that day, Caleb showed Kohana how to feed the horses, how to gather fresh water from the well, and how to carry supplies from the barn. Kohana picked up tasks quickly, observing every detail. She moved with purpose, and Caleb admired her quiet confidence. "You don't have to work," he reminded her. "You can rest if you want." She shook her head. "Doing tasks helps me understand this place better." He smiled. "Fair enough." The afternoon passed peacefully. Birds flew low across the fields, and the horses moved lazily under the sun. Kohana began to feel something she had not felt in a long time: ease. Not full comfort, but the first small steps toward it. When evening came, they shared a simple meal on the porch. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and purple, and the ranch glowed under the warm light. Kohana sat with her legs tucked under her, watching the sunset. Caleb spoke gently. "This land feels different when you're not alone." Kohana looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you feel alone often?" "Not always," he said. "But the days can get quiet. Too quiet sometimes." She understood that kind of quiet, the kind that makes the heart feel heavy. "You do not have to be alone," she said softly. "Not while I am here." Caleb smiled, touched by her words. "And you don't have to be alone either." Kohana lowered her gaze. She wasn't ready to say it out loud, but she felt something shifting inside her, something warm and steady. The ranch no longer felt like a stranger's land. It felt familiar, safe. A place where her breathing grew softer. A place where she could imagine staying, at least for now. As the stars appeared above them, one by one, she whispered a quiet truth to herself. "Maybe my feet will stay." But she did not yet speak the words aloud. For now, they sat together on the porch, wrapped in the soft night air, sharing silence that felt gentle instead of heavy. And somewhere deep within, Kohana realized that trust like the sunrise did not appear all at once. It rose slowly, warming the world little by little. The days on the ranch slowly began to form a gentle rhythm. Each sunrise brought soft golden light across the fields, and each sunset filled the sky with calm colors that touched the heart. Kohana learned the shape of the land, the sounds of the morning wind, and the quiet stories that lived in every corner of the ranch. She still carried caution in her steps, but it was no longer the heavy kind that kept her spirit chained. Slowly, without rushing, she allowed her heart to breathe again. Caleb watched this quiet change with a sense of respect. He never forced a conversation and never tried to guide her choices. He simply shared the days with her, like two travelers walking side by side on the same road, each bringing their own strength. One peaceful morning, as light filtered softly through the thin clouds, Kohana stepped outside to find Caleb sitting under the old oak tree near the barn. He had a notebook in his lap, something she had never seen him use before. His head was bent, and he was writing carefully, as if each word mattered. She approached slowly. "What are you writing?" Caleb looked up with a gentle smile. "Plans," he said. "Ideas. Things I hope to do this year." Kohana raised an eyebrow slightly. "For the ranch? For life?" he answered simply. She considered this, and sat down beside him, leaving a comfortable space between them. The oak leaves above them swayed softly, letting bits of sunlight dance across the ground. "What kind of plans?" she asked. Caleb hesitated for a moment. He respected her too much to pretend he wasn't nervous. "I've been thinking," he said slowly, "that maybe this place doesn't have to be so quiet all the time. Maybe it can grow again. Maybe, with help." Kohana tilted her head. "You want more people here?" "Not many," he said quickly. "Just the right people." She studied him carefully. She understood the meaning behind his words, even if he didn't say them fully. He was asking gently, not directly, if she wanted to stay. She looked out across the wide land. The grass swayed like soft waves, and the horses grazed peacefully near the fence. The ranch was simple, but alive. And somewhere inside her heart, a small voice whispered that leaving this place would feel like leaving a piece of herself behind. But choosing to stay was still a big decision. "I told you before," she said softly. "My feet go where they choose, and my spirit follows slowly." "I know," Caleb said. "And I don't want to push either one." A warm silence settled between them. It wasn't heavy or uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that grows only between people who understand each other. After a few moments, Caleb closed his notebook gently. "There's something else I want to show you," he said. Kohana stood with him and followed as he walked toward the far side of the ranch, where she had never been before. The path was narrow and lined with tall wildflowers. Bees floated lazily over the petals. Humming a soft morning song, they reached a small hill with a clear view of the open land to the east. At the top stood a large stone, a natural part of the earth. Shaped by time and wind, the stone was smooth, almost like it had been polished by nature's own hands. "My father used to sit here often," Caleb said softly. "He said this was where the land spoke the clearest." Quote, Kohana touched the surface of the stone. It was warm from the sun. "It feels peaceful," she said. "I come here when I need to think," Caleb continued. "When the world feels too loud." Kohana nodded slowly. "I have a place like this too," she said. "But far from here." Caleb looked at her with understanding. "You don't have to choose between places," he said kindly. "A person can have more than one place that matters." His words touched her deeper than she expected. She looked out at the horizon, where the sunlight made the hills glow softly. A gentle feeling rose inside her, not happiness, not sadness, but something warm and steady, like the first breath of spring after a long winter. She stayed standing there for a while, letting the wind wrap around her like a soft blanket. Caleb stepped back a little, giving her space to think. After some time, Kohana spoke again. Her voice was quiet, but sure. "Caleb," she said, "I thought my path had been taken from me, but being here has given me time to see it again." He nodded gently. He didn't rush her words. He waited. "I still want to find my people," she continued. "My heart needs that. But I no longer feel lost." She placed her hand lightly on the stone. "This land has given me a safe breath and a clear mind." "I'm glad it has," Caleb said. Kohana looked at him with steady eyes. "And you have treated me with respect. That matters." "I just wanted to do what's right," he replied. She nodded. "You have." A small smile touched her lips, soft, almost hidden, but real. "I will go search for my people," she said. "But I will return." Caleb's expression softened with both relief and quiet gratitude. "You're always welcome here," he said. "Whenever your journey brings you back." Kohana took a slow breath, feeling the weight inside her chest grow lighter. "I know," she said. They walked back to the ranch together, their steps calm and unhurried. Neither of them filled the silence with unnecessary words. Their quiet understanding felt stronger than anything spoken. When they reached the house, Kohana paused at the porch and looked around one last time. She touched the wooden railing gently, almost as if memorizing its feel. "I will leave at sunrise," she said. Caleb nodded. "I'll prepare supplies for your journey." She hesitated. "Thank you." It was the first time she had said those words to him. Caleb felt them settle warmly inside him, like sunlight touching the heart. That night, Kohana lay in her room, staring at the soft glow of the lantern. She thought about her people, the land she came from, and the future paths she had yet to walk. She also thought about the ranch, the quiet mornings, the warm sunsets, the sound of Caleb's steady footsteps, and the gentle peace that lived in the open fields. She touched the blanket beside her and breathed deeply. "Maybe," she whispered to herself, "this place is part of my path too." The next morning, the sky was soft and pale, turning the world into a gentle canvas. Caleb stood outside with a small pack of supplies. Kohana stepped out, her hair lifted by the morning wind. "You'll be safe," Caleb said softly, "and you'll find what you're looking for." Kohana met his eyes. "I believe I will." She took the pack from him and adjusted it over her shoulder. She turned to face the open land. where her path stretched far into the distance. Before taking her first step, she looked back at Caleb and said in a steady voice, "I will return to this place. And when I do, it will be by my own choice." Caleb smiled, a warm, quiet smile filled with trust. "I'll be here," he said. "This ranch is not the same without you." Kohana held his gaze for a long moment, then turned and began walking into the soft light of morning. Her steps were strong, clear, and free, and though she was leaving, the air around the ranch felt fuller somehow, as if her spirit still touched the land gently. Caleb watched, until she disappeared over the distant hill. He felt no sadness, only hope, steady and calm, because he knew this truth. Paths that are meant to meet will always find each other again, and Kohana's footsteps, guided by her own heart, would one day return home.